For decades, riders described the same mental shift. The moment the bike moves, the mind locks in. Scientists dismissed it as adrenaline or imagination, until one neuroscience team finally measured it. What they saw didn't match any known attention model. Focus sharpened, calm increased, distraction vanished, and the state couldn't be recreated without an actual motorcycle in motion. The data blindsided researchers and forced them to ask questions they weren't prepared to answer. Why does riding activate a mental mode nothing else can? And why did some want the findings left unexplored? The mental switch no one could explain. For years, riders described a mental shift the moment a ride began, yet no researcher bothered to investigate it. Scientists assumed it was emotion, adrenaline, or simple novelty. But when neuromapping teams finally strapped real riders with mobile scanners and released them onto open roads, what they saw forced them to rethink how the human mind works. The data showed a rapid mode change the instant the wheels moved forward. Everyday noise shut down. Clutter dropped away. The brain switched channels with a speed researchers had never documented in any other routine activity. They expected distraction. Instead, they saw clarity. Riders always felt that clean mental reset. The moment you settle into the seat and roll out, it feels like flipping a breaker and powering a different part of yourself. Scientists finally captured it. A complete shift from scattered thought to streamlined processing. One researcher described the state as a neurological doorway, triggered not by emotion but by motion itself. This stunned the study team because walking, driving, running, and even controlled athletic drills never produced the same jump. Riding ignited a mental reset that no other everyday activity seemed to access. What riders always sensed became measurable truth. The moment the machine moves, the mind moves with it into a different channel entirely. That initial mental switch pales beside deeper neurological changes revealed later, shifting scientific understanding far beyond early assumptions about focus or adrenaline. The attention lock that only riding activates. When scientists reviewed the brain scans from riders in motion, they expected to see typical attention drift, the same mind-wandering pattern found in automobile drivers. Instead, they found the opposite. The prefrontal filtering system, the part responsible for sorting, narrowing, and eliminating mental noise, snapped into place with mechanical precision. It behaved like a tool tightening until there was no slack left. The brain locked onto the riding environment so cleanly that researchers described the shift as attentional snap-on, a state they had never observed in normal transportation. The surprising part was not the intensity, but the automatic nature of this transformation. Riders were not trying to focus. The mind simply refused to allow drift. Every irrelevant thought, every lingering worry, every background distraction fell away, stripped out like excess components being removed from a machine. What remained was pure, functional attention. Scientists noted how rare this was. In controlled studies, even trained subjects struggled to maintain attention without deliberate effort. Riding required none. It triggered a filtering system that reorganized itself instantly, discarding noise and locking onto spatial and motion cues with startling efficiency. For the first time, researchers understood why riders often described clarity, not excitement, as the defining mental experience. Riding did not force focus, it created it. This discovery made researchers wonder what other hidden patterns were waiting beneath the surface. If you want more breakdowns that cut through the noise and tell the truth riders actually feel on the road, hit like and subscribe. And share your own experience with this topic, because Real Rider Insight keeps these conversations sharp and grounded. The calm focus rhythm, hidden in the brain. The next surprise came when scientists examined the brain's electrical rhythms. They expected heightened beta waves, the type associated with alert engagement. They found them, but they also found something more unusual. Alpha waves, typically linked to calm internal states, appeared at the same time. That combination almost never shows up together in daily life. Yet, on a motorcycle, it formed a steady blend. Scientists labeled it calm focus, a rhythm that balanced sharp external awareness with deep internal steadiness. This challenged assumptions about the human mind. Most tasks pull the brain toward one state or the other, either calm or alert. Riding created both. One researcher compared the neurological pattern to an engine idling smoothly, while still ready to surge the moment the throttle is touched. It was a balanced pulse, stable, but primed for action. Riders had described this for decades as being in the zone, but scientists dismissed that phrase as subjective. The data proved otherwise. The calm focus rhythm was real, repeatable, and unmistakable on every rider tested. No artificial environment, no simulation, and no controlled lab setup produced it naturally. Only the real road did. This raised a critical question for the research teams. How could the brain sustain calm and focus at the same time, when those states normally cancel each other out? The answer became the most shocking finding of all. The calm readiness paradox researchers didn't expect. When scientists compared the calm focus rhythm to deeper neurological markers, they found another layer hidden beneath it. Systems associated with readiness, anticipation, and rapid response were active too, yet without the stress signatures that usually accompany them. This created a dual state the team had never documented in ordinary activities. Steady calm coexisting with high alertness. In typical settings, readiness elevates tension. On a motorcycle, it did not. The brain stayed prepared without slipping into pressure or panic. Researchers were stunned by the contradiction. They compared the pattern to elite athletes who prepare for sudden movement, except riders displayed none of the strain seen in high-pressure athletic conditions. The brain was ready but relaxed, alert yet unburdened, balanced but engaged. It was a biological paradox that no one expected to find in an activity often misrepresented as chaotic or risky. This dual activation explained why riders responded so quickly to unexpected situations without feeling overloaded. The brain had established a unique operating mode, calm readiness. It was a state built for complex movement, shifting conditions, and the constant negotiation between control and adaptation. Scientists realized they had not uncovered a thrill response. They had uncovered a cognitive system firing at its highest efficiency, a system riding had been training for years without acknowledgement. This revelation set the stage for the next discovery. The advanced mental abilities riding quietly builds over time. Spatial mapping. The road lives inside the rider's head. Riding strengthens a form of spatial sense that most people never develop. With every mile, the mind builds an internal layout of the environment that updates faster than ordinary perception allows. Distance becomes easier to read. Lane flow becomes clearer, and lean angles make sense long before conscious thought joins the process. This mapping is not taught deliberately. It forms through repetition, motion, and constant exposure to real conditions. Researchers comparing riders to non-riders noticed that riders produced quicker and more accurate spatial judgments in every measured category. The road seems to live inside the mind, because the brain treats movement as the most important information source. As the ride continues, that internal map becomes more detailed. Curves signal their shape earlier, closing speeds feel more predictable, and the brain handles multiple spatial elements with surprising smoothness. This pattern has been observed in controlled studies where riders consistently demonstrated superior distance evaluation and surrounding awareness. The brain adapts to environmental demand, building a mapping system shaped by motion rather than stillness. That adaptation gives riders a mental advantage that expands quietly over time. What surprised researchers most was how little effort the process required. The mapping system improved simply because the rider kept moving through space. Once the mind formed this spatial sense, another equally important system rose to meet it. Now, how does the brain manage dozens of fleeting details without overload during continuous movement? Working memory, holding a dozen details, only moments at a time. Riding demands a form of mental juggling that never pauses. At any given moment, the mind tracks traffic positions, lane spacing, surface changes, signals, and environmental shifts. These details do not remain long. They are held briefly, used immediately, and released the moment they stop being relevant. Researchers studying this short hold pattern call it a cycling system because information moves through the mind in a loop that never stops refreshing. Riding sharpens this cycle because the environment requires constant updates. Nothing stays still long enough for the brain to relax its pace. This update loop becomes faster and more efficient with experience. Riders often handle several pieces of information without feeling overloaded because the mind has learned to manage quick turnovers. It is a use-it-then-toss-it system that supports cleaner decisions and higher awareness. Scientists observing riders noticed that this mental cycle enhanced decision speed even outside the riding environment, showing how powerful the training effect can be. Working memory becomes a stable part of the rider's mental toolkit because the demands of the road never let the system rest. Every lane merge, every signal change, and every unexpected shift strengthens the loop. As riders grow more skilled, this rapid cycling becomes second nature. And once the mind handles short-term movement with ease, it begins forming something deeper. The next system predicts what will happen long before it happens. Predictive thinking, anticipating trouble before it appears. Predictive thinking is one of the most remarkable mental skills riders develop. Over years of exposure, the mind begins building forecasting templates that fire instantly when familiar cues appear. A slight lane drift from another vehicle, a change in road tone, or a shift in spacing can trigger an early sense that something is about to happen. Riders often notice these signals before any visible threat forms, because their brains have matched the pattern countless times. Scientists studying these early sense reactions found that prediction on a motorcycle is not instinct. It is trained cognition built on exposure and experience. These forecasting templates speed up the rider's ability to interpret subtle cues and act before a situation becomes hazardous. The more miles accumulated, the more refined the pattern match becomes. This ability explains why many riders adjust their position or speed before anyone else sees a problem. The brain is not guessing. It recognizes cues the same way a seasoned mechanic hears trouble in an engine long before failure arrives. Prediction becomes part of the mental routine, operating without conscious effort. Researchers were impressed by how consistently riders demonstrated this forecasting ability across different environments. The mind became faster not through pressure, but through repetition. And once that forecasting system matured, another essential skill emerged to handle sudden changes. Cognitive flexibility, changing plans without hesitation. Riding sharpens the mind's ability to switch tasks the moment conditions change. Gravel appears in a corner, a vehicle brakes without warning, or lane flow shifts unexpectedly. The rider does not freeze or cling to the original plan. Instead, the mind performs a clean switching action, abandoning the previous approach and forming an alternate plan without delay. Scientists examining this adapt-once response noticed how quickly riders reorganized their thinking under pressure. The process did not rely on emotion or panic. It relied on a trained system that had learned to pivot smoothly. This form of cognitive flexibility grows stronger with real miles, because riding constantly challenges assumptions. Every ride carries unexpected elements that force the brain to shift over quickly. Each time the rider adapts, the system becomes more fluid. Eventually, task switching feels natural, even during complex movement. Researchers studying riders found that this ability extended beyond the road, improving adaptability in unrelated environments. The switching process became a mental strength shaped by motion and experience. Cognitive flexibility offers one of the clearest examples of how riding trains the mind to remain steady while changing direction instantly. It does not require force or strain. It comes from exposure to situations where hesitation is not an option. Researchers recognize this adaptability as a high-performance cognitive system developed through consistent riding. Mental adaptability prepared cognition, physical integration unified mind, body, machine into a single system. Coordination loops, how hands, eyes, and machine talk to each other. Riding builds a coordination loop that links hands, eyes, and machine into one continuous system. Each motion triggers feedback that the body reads instantly, adjusting timing without needing conscious commands. Clutch, throttle, lean, and posture all respond to this loop, forming a dialogue between rider and machine. The loop strengthens with repetition, turning early deliberate movements into smooth, efficient actions that no longer require step-by-step thought. Researchers studying the timing of rider input found that the body makes micro-adjustments faster than deliberate planning allows. The loop handles these corrections because the mind and muscles communicate constantly. As the ride continues, the feedback pattern becomes even more precise. The brain learns how much pressure to apply, how quickly to adjust, and how to read small shifts in engine or suspension feel. This feedback converts scattered inputs into one steady line of control, letting the rider sense changes almost as they occur. Over time, this coordination loop becomes second nature, shaping every turn and every straightaway. It is an integrated system that emerges only through real miles, not simulation or slow practice. And once this loop forms, the machine behaves less like a separate object and more like an extension of the rider's movement. This coordination loop lays the groundwork for another system that works even deeper within the body. Balance. The quiet system riding trains. Without effort, balance on a motorcycle depends on a refined equilibrium system that most people never train. The vestibular network inside the inner ear responds to every lean, shift, and rise in the road. As the rider moves through curves and straightaways, this inner gauge aligns constantly, building stability without requiring awareness. Researchers studying equilibrium found that riders corrected posture faster than conscious thought allowed, proving that the system works on its own. Every change in lean angle or body position registers instantly, prompting subtle realignments that keep the bike and rider steady. As miles increase, these adjustments become smoother. The body memorizes how to settle during turns, how to counter small disruptions, and how to maintain lean stability even when conditions change without warning. This alignment process continues long after the ride ends, improving steadiness during everyday movement as well. Riders often demonstrate stronger balance off the bike because the equilibrium network has been trained through constant motion and correction. What surprised researchers was how quietly this system developed. No deliberate training was required, simply leaning into curves, adjusting to surface variations, and holding posture over long distances activated equilibrium refinement. The result is a level of balance shaped by movement rather than thought, a steady platform that supports every skill that follows. This strengthened balance system prepares the mind for another challenge that riding uniquely develops. If you want to stay ahead of the research shaping how the world finally understands riders, make sure you subscribe. Every new episode brings deeper insight into the mechanics, the mind, and the road, and you will want to be here for what comes next. Sensory bandwidth. Handling more input without overload. Riding expands the brain's bandwidth for handling multiple streams of sensory data at once. Pavement texture, wind shifts, engine vibration, and traffic motion all arrive together, creating a multi-input field that demands constant filtering. Instead of overwhelming the rider, the brain learns to organize this sensory load into a clear stream. Researchers measuring rider perception found that riders absorbed more simultaneous input without strain compared to those who did not ride. The mind prioritizes signals automatically, letting relevant details stand out, while background noise fades. This filtering stream becomes more efficient with experience. Subtle changes in road feel, airflow, or vibration are recognized instantly because the brain has learned their meaning through miles of exposure. The sensory system broadens rather than tightens, giving the rider a wider field of perception that remains calm and controlled. Over time, the brain treats this multi-input environment as normal, not demanding, allowing the rider to stay aware without fatigue. The expansion of bandwidth does not come from effort. It forms because the environment requires steady processing, while the rider stays engaged in motion. Each ride trains the system to accept more information calmly and respond only to what matters. This expanding capacity for sensory load sets up the next cognitive system, one that manages constant environmental change. Situational awareness, the constant environmental scan. Situational awareness on a motorcycle is not the same as narrow focus. It is a broad scanning system that sweeps the environment for cues and updates constantly without demanding conscious effort. The rider monitors forward movement, side lanes, mirrors, surface texture, and airflow in one continuous field. This cue sweep repeats many times per minute, forming an update cycle that keeps the rider connected to everything happening around the machine. Researchers studying field sense in riders found that experienced riders process changes in their surroundings faster and with less strain. This awareness cycle becomes seamless through repetition. The mind does not fixate on one element. Instead, it moves through a circular scan that brings fresh information into view while letting outdated details fade naturally. The system refines itself with every mile as the rider learns where to look, how to read behavior patterns in traffic, and how to track shifting conditions. With enough experience, situational awareness becomes a natural rhythm rather than a deliberate action. Riders often struggle to explain how they notice so much at once because the system runs below conscious thought. The mind updates the field sense continuously, ensuring that nothing critical slips by unnoticed. Scientists were impressed by how this awareness developed without formal training. It emerged from real movement, real roads, and real exposure. This environmental scan completes the mental and physical foundation that prepares riders for the deeper integrations explored in the next one. Why science ignored riders for so long? For decades, scientific research overlooked the mental abilities shaped by riding because early methods were not built for dynamic environments. Laboratories favored controlled settings where variables stayed predictable, surfaces stayed level, and movement could be repeated without change. Riding, by contrast, existed in conditions that shifted every second. It carried wind pressure, vibration, changing terrain, and real-time decision demands that did not fit neatly into the tools researchers used. This mismatch created a long oversight, a blind spot where rider experience existed without scientific examination. Studies focused almost entirely on safety statistics or crash data, ignoring the deeper cognitive processes that riding demanded. This omission left generations of riders insisting that the activity sharpened their minds, while academic circles dismissed the claim as anecdotal. No one doubted that riding required attention, but few were willing to investigate how skill, awareness, and mental clarity formed over time. Only when new portable sensors, real-world monitoring tools, and neurological mapping techniques appeared did researchers realize how late their discovery truly was. They began to see patterns riders had recognized for years. Patterns of sharpened focus, refined perception, and heightened control. With the blind spot exposed, scientific interest shifted. Observers started reassessing what riding revealed about human capability, setting the stage for other fields to reconsider their assumptions. How mental health fields quietly adopt riding principles. As evidence grew showing how riding shaped attention, clarity, and environmental engagement, Mental health professionals began integrating structured riding principles into broader wellness routines. This movement did not arrive with public announcements. It grew through quiet trials and programs working with veterans, trauma survivors, and individuals rebuilding daily structure. These groups introduced focused sessions that mirrored the mental demands of riding, such as controlled movement, sustained environmental scanning, and task-anchored presence. Some programs used supervised group rides, while others emphasized engagement with open space, rhythm, and steady physical motion. Outcomes guided the interest. Participants showed stronger focus, improved grounding, and more consistent routines. The benefits were not framed in sentimental terms. Practitioners viewed riding principles as functional tools that supported attention, reduced mental clutter, and encouraged present-moment stability. Environmental engagement, a cornerstone of riding, became a model for reconnecting individuals with their surroundings. As more programs reported success, riding entered conversations that had never included it before. It became part of discussions about practical methods for improving awareness and rebuilding behavioral patterns. Though these principles were adapted carefully, the core remained the same: structured movement, controlled focus, and real-world sensory involvement. These outcomes encouraged other fields to pay attention, including the industries that design machines, train riders, and guide future generations of motorcyclists. This shift opened the door for a broader industry response, shaped by emerging evidence. The motorcycle industry responds to the findings. Manufacturers and training organizations soon recognized that scientific validation of riding's cognitive benefits created an opportunity. For years, companies emphasized style, horsepower claims, or trend-driven features. Now, the conversation shifted toward capability, control, and long-range ergonomics. Engineers studied how machines could support rider stability, balance training, and sustained awareness. This alignment led to adjustments in seat geometry, handlebar reach, suspension feel, and feedback clarity. The focus moved toward machines that reinforced the mental strengths riding naturally developed. Training programs also evolved. Instructors adopted evidence-based methods that emphasized perceptual development, spatial understanding, and decision timing. The goal was no longer only to pass basic certification, but to shape more complete riders who understood how awareness cycles, sensory filtering, and coordination loops influenced safety and performance. Program designers incorporated exercises that trained environmental reading, rapid adjustment, and controlled predictability. These refinements emerged not from speculation, but from data that confirmed how the mind responded to riding. Marketing shifted as well. Instead of relying on flash or surface appeal, brands highlighted durability, control, and long-term capability. Riders responded because these qualities aligned with real experience, not manufactured image. The industry's adjustments showed a growing respect for evidence, proving that rider skill and cognitive strength were not side topics, but central to the riding world's future direction. This broad industry alignment created cultural momentum that carried into the identity of riders themselves. A revival of rider identity and what it means today. As research confirmed what riders had expressed for generations, a cultural revival began forming around riding's deeper meaning. Riders found renewed pride in the idea that the activity represented more than motion or recreation. It symbolized capability, awareness, and a sense of purpose shaped through experience. Heritage and modern understanding blended as communities recognized the mental and physical refinement that riding produced. Group rides, training events, and garage gatherings grew in significance because they connected individuals through shared skill and shared identity. This revival was not driven by nostalgia alone. It reflected an appreciation for the craft of riding and the discipline it shaped over time. Riders embraced traditions while acknowledging the new evidence that explained why those traditions held such lasting value. Many rediscovered the feeling that riding sharpened their thinking, steadied their behavior, and anchored their routines. They spoke about renewed purpose, clarified perspective, and the satisfaction of seeing their lived reality finally acknowledged. Younger riders connected with seasoned riders through respect and curiosity, strengthening community bonds as experience met insight. Riding gained recognition as disciplined practice, shaping character and awareness. Depth proven by science, confirming what riders understood long before the world noticed. Riders always sensed something changed once the engine settled and the noise fell away. Now the science is catching up. Time on the road sharpens focus, steadies the mind, and shapes us in ways a lab never could. Every mile trains more than skill. It reshapes perspective. If riding has changed how you think or handle pressure, comment with what you noticed first. And if thoughtful stories like this matter to you, like the video and subscribe.